Let's forge ahead here. All right. All right. I wanted to play my theme music, but I can't play my theme music because I got Brother Barry on the phone. Yeah, but let's get started. All right. Listen, thank you all for tuning into the Mannhood podcast. Truly do appreciate it. Kind of feeling our way through. This is the first time doing a live. And I just said a minute ago to Brother Barry here that my kids always tell me that people over 40 should not have smart devices because we have no clue of what we're doing. But I let them know that, hey, I pay for the smart devices. All right, so y'all just need to show me what to do and how to do it. Welcome to the Mannhood podcast. If you have not experienced the Mannhood podcast, I'm Bob Mann. The Mannhood podcast is about fatherhood. And part of being a father, you should be a man first. Most of us become fathers before we become men. And to be a man and be a father, you need to be able to provide for that child and that mother. You need to be able to protect that child and that mother. You need to be a promise keeper. When you make promises to that mother and to that child, you need to be able to keep your promises to them, regardless of the circumstances. If you listen to episode 3 of the podcast, you can pick up the podcast on Spotify, on Amazon, on TuneIn, Alexa, iHeartRadio. Go to my website at mannhood.buzzsprout.com, and you can see all the different places where you can listen to it. You can listen to it there. You can follow me on Facebook, on Mannhood Podcast, on Instagram at Mannhood Podcast as well. Also on Twitter, you can follow me. I ask some provocative questions there. But in being a man, and being a father, it requires you to keep some promises, like I say, regardless of the circumstances that child was brought into the world. The child was totally innocent. You may not have planned to have a child. Like I say, in episode 3, I talk about that. Not planning on having a child, and I go through the numbers, and it's actually, over a 50-year period, if you had sex twice a week for 52 weeks, that's 5,200 times you had sex. I don't know nobody who's trying to have 5,000 kids. So when you lay down, you did not plan on having a child. At some point, hopefully you did plan on it, but if you didn't, you got to grow up real fast to become that father and be that man. My journey was a little bit different. I got married within a week or so. My wife was expecting. And the reason I know that is because my father-in-law counted the days. When my first son was born, he went back and counted to see if she was pregnant before we got married or after we got married. I'm glad the days lined up, and it was after we got married. And that's right away at 23 years old, became a father. I don't know if I was ready. I was probably more advanced than most, had a good job, had a roof over my head, could provide and everything else, but still not quite sure what it meant to be a father. And I learned a lot of things just by experiment. I tell you all the time in the podcast that there's no training for being a father. There's no manual that tells you, okay, in month 3 of pregnancy, this is what a father does. There's no training manual that you can go to. When your child is 6 years old and needs to learn how to ride a bike or is having trouble in school, there's no manual that you can go to. Imagine if you went to a doctor, a dentist, a brain surgeon, who had no training whatsoever and was going to work on you. You'd be really anxious about having that person work on you. Yet and still, as fathers, and yes, mothers too, but mothers seem to have a lot more support. They talk to each other about it. Older women talk to the younger women. Imagine walking in the barbershop and all the brothers in the barbershop are talking about being a father. taking care of that 6-year-old, and oh yeah, they're struggling, making words and sounding out words and this and that, and this is what I did. I had never been to the barbershop and had that kind of conversation. But as men, we need to have more conversations like that, and that's what the podcast is about. So as men, we can come together, have these conversations about being a man, about fatherhood. There's an ideal way to become a father, a husband, wife, have children, raise them and everything. And both husband and wife are participating in raising those children. But for most of us, that is not necessarily the journey that we're on. Briefly, my journey started out that way. 2 children, house, everything just seemed to be going well. And then my wife got ill. My late wife got ill. And she was ill for 13 years before she passed away. But now I'm raising 2 sons with a wife that's ill. Our whole budget was based on 2 incomes, and she had to stop working. So things were a little haywire there. And then while she was sick, had 2 more children. While she was sick, still had 2 more children. When she passed away, now I'm raising 4 children. The two oldest were in their early 20s. They were in college. But the 2 younger ones, 2 girls, were 9 and 11. And here I am, a man who basically never been single as an adult, raising 2 girls. So my journey was a bit different along the way, and I share that in the podcast, and I invite you to join me in the podcast as we go through this journey and talk about fatherhood, what it means to be a good father. The last episode talks about forgiving our fathers, because many times we repeat what our fathers before us did. We repeat it with our kids. And I tell a funny story about how my father, he would say to us, "Let's have that noise," after he whooped us. We're crying, making all kinds of noise and everything, and his response is, "Let's have that noise." Makes absolutely no sense. But I found myself, after whooping my 2 boys, saying, "Let's have that noise." I remember very clearly standing at the top of the stairs in Piscataway, over in the Heights of Piscataway, and I got a guest today who's from the Heights of Piscataway, standing on the top of the stairs, and I fell on the floor laughing at myself. Just laughed hysterically at myself, because I never thought I would say that, what my father did. But so many things that you see your fathers doing, you repeat and you do. So if you had a good father, you're going to repeat some really good things. You had a father that was not so good, you're going to repeat some of those things too. So we talk about it and discuss it in the podcast, and hopefully you'll go on to the different media and listen to the podcast. I always say, if you are a father, you know a father, you want to be a father, you want a better relationship with your father, this podcast is for you. And I'll share from my experience, but my experience is not the only experience. I want to bring my guest in, his name is Barry Malone. We lovingly call him Butter, one of the most genuine brothers you ever want to meet in your life. Listen, if you got this brother on your side, you have a friend for life, okay? He is loyal to no end. And what made me want to bring him on the podcast is, a few years ago, he was going through some struggles in the courts, trying to get custody of his son, to visit his son, to see his son. He was supporting him and everything else, but ran into some barriers as to being able to get, and he shared his heart on Facebook, and I followed his story, and I was like, wow, that's a brother who really loves his kids, and I said, yeah, when I thought about who I would like to have on during the live, I said, yeah, I want to bring Barry on and let him talk about his experience. I reached out to him on Facebook, said, hey bro, would you like to? And he was like, yeah Bob, I would love it, thank you. Barry, Unfortunately, I haven't been able to figure out how to bring him in on the video, but I do have him on the audio. I have him on the phone. So I'm going to go ahead and let him talk a little bit about his experience becoming a father. And if you have questions, by all means, type them in the chat, and I'll read them off to him. He can probably see them in the chat, and go ahead and talk to us. Go ahead, Barry, talk to us.
First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you, Bob. Everything you said about me applies to yourself.
Thank you.
They say, man, the main thing that I can say to you, Bob, is, being a father is something different. And I didn't have a father. My biological father got my mother pregnant, and and he left.
Okay.
I never used that as a crutch. What I did was I let it fuel my fire to become a better father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I have two older kids. That's Barry Jr. and Silk. They all my heart. One thing that I need to tell all the fathers and anybody wanting to be a father is one of the main things that you got to do as a father is you got to surround yourself with other people that want to be fathers. You can't have, a bunch of friends going to the club. You can't have a bunch of friends going out. You can't have people separate you from what is important, which is your family. You know what I mean? Now, as a father, my struggles as far as Tristan goes is, I got divorced from my first two kids' mother. I had a child with somebody that was over 15 years younger than me. And of course, it wasn't really a good choice, but it was a choice. And being our differences in age, understand what I'm saying, came out because when you're younger, women try to use your kids as pawns. They use them as leverage pieces. And when you're a real father and you love your kids, you're going to go through anything to make sure that they are right. And the thing that I got to tell you is that, there's nothing that I wouldn't do for my kids. There's nothing that I wouldn't go through.
Yeah.
So during the journey, I went to court 17 times in Philadelphia just to get parental rights invoked, not custody, because his mother's not a bad mother. Mm-hmm. It's just I want my son to know me.
Well, let me interrupt you there. You said 17 times you went to court?
17.
Wow. Okay.
But I went to Philadelphia 36 times total. Understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
10 of the 17 times when we got to court, they told us she can't make it today, so we were going to reschedule. But they don't tell you that until you go to court. Yeah. And coming all the way from Jersey, at the time, hopping on a train, going there, just to be turned around was just discouraging. But there's nothing that, can discourage me against, being there for my son.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's basically, what it is.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can say for my young fathers and anybody that want to be a father is, to be a real father and to be a parent, period, is, you got to have your house in order, which is God, your children, and then you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And any other order in the same thing is not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't have God, your wife. If you're a man and you put your wife or a woman before your kids, you're not going to be a real parent. If you're a woman and you put a man before your kids, you're not a real mother.
Mm-hmm.
Understand what I'm saying? And order of my house has always been God, my children, and then me.
Yeah.
And that's it, Bob. I mean, you live the same way. You know what I mean? And you can see the work through all your children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's basically it.
That's basically, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, Barry. Listen, thank you, man, for sharing that. And how old is your son now?
Say that one more time.
How old is your son now, the youngest one?
Tristan was born September 21st of 2006.
Oh wow, okay.
So yeah, okay. He'll be 16.
Okay. My daughter has the same birthday, September 21st. That's a good date.
Yeah. And my other son is September 13th.
Yeah. So Barry, if somebody else is going through something like this, what advice would you give them?
what advice would I tell them, honestly, Bob? Don't get discouraged.
Okay.
Because, number one, I'm not going to play the race card, understand what I'm saying, but the courts is not made for us.
Right.
And when I mean us, I mean men.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying black people, I'm just saying men.
Right.
The court is not made for men. The court is really made for child support and for the people, understand what I'm saying, that don't want to take their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you get the exemplary few that want to take care of their kids, understand what I'm saying, they really are not, it's not equal.
Right.
Understand what I'm saying? Because, for example, understand what I'm saying, I have this custody thing in place.
Okay.
And Lord knows, if I don't pay my child support, I'm driving the truck right now, they're going to take my license, they're going to put a warrant out, they're going to do all of this stuff. Now, I have this custody, which we still have joint custody, and I went through what I went through, and right now, understand what I'm saying, it's been 3 years since I've seen Kristen. And when I go back to court and I say, well, what about her? And what about, locking her up? And what about, doing what you got to do to her the same way you would do to me?
Right.
They don't got no answers.
All right, so you're paying child support and you haven't seen the child in 3 years.
No, I haven't seen my son. I haven't seen my son in 4 years now, Bob.
Wow.
And that's after going through everything I went through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, understand what I'm saying, people will tell you, like, oh, you're not a good father if you don't do this, you're not a good mother if you don't do that. But what about the ones that do everything they can do?
Right.
Right.
And
then
yeah.
And the bad part is, and this is for all my men out there, don't get discouraged and then don't get angry because they want to label you the angry black man. They want to, make it to where you can't see your kids. They want to make it to where the stereotype is applied to you.
Right.
So whenever you go in there, cooler heads prevail.
Yeah.
And trust and believe, I'm like probably everybody else. When I go into any kind of legal establishment, courtroom or whatever, man, I get itchy, scratchy, I get all allergic, I really don't like it. But I got to do what I got to do.
Right. So you do what you got to do for your child. Listen, I always say that parenting is not for cowards. All right, because there's a lot of stuff that you're going to run into that you ain't never been prepared for. My father was always there for me. Great father, great dad, always supportive, provided, did everything I need, a promise keeper, all of those great things. But when my wife got sick, when my wife died, those were things that he had never been through. He prayed for me, he gave me advice, but he hadn't been through them, so he really couldn't give me a roadmap as to what it is. And something you said kind of hit on the crux of the podcast is, what is a good father? I'm listening to you 36 times going to court, paying child support, haven't seen the child in 4 years. I would say your heart is in the right place. You should be a good father. But I'm sure other people would look at it and be like, well, he's paying child support, he hasn't seen a child in 4 years, and put those two, just isolate those facts and say he's not a good father without having all the details. And that's what I want to get to, the crux of it, the details of it, and say, hey, my brother loves his kids. I saw it on Facebook 3-4 years ago, maybe even longer than that, when he was talking about going back and forth to court and everything for his child. I did not know until you just said it that you had not seen your son in 4 years, and it's not because of not trying. It's because of the mother, the court system, and other things that have happened. So as fathers, we need to be able to support each other. You talk about the court system not being devised for us. Many times, until you said that, I really didn't know that that's how the court system treated a brother going for visitation rights to see their child and everything else. But we need to kind of band together and say, hey, that ain't right. We need to do something different.
Well, let me just interject something real quick, Bob.
Yep.
Philadelphia is so far behind with so many cases.
Yeah.
Okay. If court for your child, there's a 19-month waiting list till you get a court date.
Wow.
19 months, a year and 7 months it will take you to go to court. Now here's where the BS come in.
Mm-hmm.
If you pay $100, they can expedite it, and you can move up 6 months. You can move up 6 months to now it's only a year and 1 month.
Oh, man.
But the minimum is a year.
That's
until
crazy.
you go to court.
That is crazy.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that is beyond crazy. You know,
Yeah.
the thing is, you know, and this is in Philly. I'm not gonna speak for everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, because there's so many cases.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And because you know the system is the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be patient.
Right.
And this is where you know a lot of people lose their cool.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the other parent's house, act out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go beat somebody's you know what, and then you get labeled.
Yep. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
when you do go to court,
Yeah.
the mother got to say, "This is why I don't want him to have."
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So like,
Right.
in the back of my mind the whole time, and even right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's like don't act up.
Yeah.
Because if you act up, understand what I'm saying, everything that they might be saying about you is gonna become true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And everything the system wants to believe about you is gonna come true.
Yeah.
So don't act up.
Yeah.
Keep your head.
Yeah, don't act up. And you know, if you listen to the episodes of the podcast, I think in the first episode I talk about your child is 5 years old for 365 days. And every day you miss, you do not get back. You can't
That's
make
right.
up that time. And if the courts are putting you back 17 months, a year and a half from seeing your child, that, especially depending on how old that child is, if they're in their developmental years, that's huge not being there for that time. And especially as a teenager with boys,
Right.
you know, you need to be there to kind of straighten them out and put them on the right path. And what really happens is the child is the one who is suffering. Mothers, fathers, listen, we had sex. We weren't planning on having a child. We were just planning on having a good time. And a child came from it. She developed expectations. You developed expectations. Y'all never really talked about it and came into an agreement. And that's what should have really happened about how you were going to raise this child. And then live up to that agreement. And that agreement has to be a living agreement. It's going to change. What you do for that child as an infant will be different than what you do for that child as a toddler, will be different from what you do for that child as a preteen and as a teen. All those things have to be talked about in real time as you go. And it's probably better if you can keep it out of court and y'all come to an agreement. Put y'all stuff aside. Make it about that child. And not everybody is mature enough. I talk about men not being boys, but growing up before they have a child. I'm not bashing anybody, but there's some women who haven't grown up before they have a child. And now, you know, you got, you know, childish ways of a woman, childish ways of a man, trying to do what grown-ups, what a man and a woman would have trouble doing, a mature man and a mature woman would have trouble doing. You know, if they had everything about them, they had all the money that they needed, all the emotional support that they needed, the spiritual support that they needed, it's still tough to raise a child. And then when you don't have all of those things and you're struggling, fighting back and forth, that child suffers. You know, so if my podcast is about anything, it's more about the kids. You know, and if you have a good father, chances are that kid is going to have a better life, a better experience in life. And I realize that not everybody has that ideal, you know, husband and wife together, having a child and everything. There's all types of situations out there, but that doesn't abdicate responsibilities for being a father. And Barry, it sounds like you are a great father to all three of your kids, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us and talking about it. Hopefully it helps somebody. today. Definitely helped me. I'll probably be reaching out to you again to bring you back in and follow up once I get this camera thing fixed, so people can see you on camera next thing, and maybe give us an update. Okay.
Well, yeah, but before we go live, I just want to say one more thing, and then I'm gonna step out. All right.
Okay.
The best thing that a man can do is surround himself with men like himself. When I was coming up in Piscataway, being popular was important.
Yeah.
I wanted to be butter popular, and now, understand what I'm saying, I want to be seldom seen.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I like that.
You know, because the circle of men that I got around me, like you, like brother Tim Beverly, Curtis Barnes, Ronnie Parham, Snooky.
Yep.
My circle is so much smaller, but so much better.
Yeah.
Understand? Yeah. And it ain't about quantity; it's about quality.
Yeah.
You know, so if I can tell any man out there what's important after you become a father, surround yourself with fathers.
Yeah.
There's another brother in Plainfield named Tim Cox that I love. The whole Cox family, understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, love them all. Understand what I'm saying? But all of those brothers, the whole Cox family, the men, and this is no disrespect to the women, but the men take care of the women, take care of the children just as much as the women.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you need to do. But with that being said, I appreciate you having me on.
Yep.
And listen, we're gonna do it again. We got each other's number. I love you.
Love you too, bro. Look,
all right.
And listen up, y'all. I didn't mention this before, but Barry's working today. He called in from work, okay, to do this, you know, to share with y'all. So I really want y'all to appreciate him, you know, and thank him for, you know, sharing with us today. Again, I invite you all to go to the podcast. We talk about a lot of these things. You talk about being around good brothers who are men. I talk about a lot of these things and issues and so forth on the podcast. I invite you to go Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, TuneIn, on YouTube. I got as many views on YouTube as on any of the other podcast platforms, so you can view it on YouTube as well. Just Google Mannhood, okay? Man, and two N's, MANN Hood. All right, and you'll be able to find the podcast, find the videos, and also on my Facebook and Instagram and Twitter pages. By all means, go to all of those things. Barry, brother, I love you. Thank you.
I love you too.
Appreciate it.
When will this episode be on YouTube? Right after this?
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can download it and put it on YouTube. Probably not right after this. But I'll let you know. I'm not exactly sure when. Okay, I will definitely let you know.
I'm gonna get back to work, and to everybody else, Tim, Alonzo, Kurt, everybody listening. You know, I love all y'all. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right, Bob. Take care, brother.
Take care.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. Yep. Thank you all, and y'all have a great day. Thanks.